So, John, you recently completed a 100-mile race on 2 feet.
Correct.
All at one time, all continuously in a row.
28 hours, 52 minutes.
And how many seconds?
Oh, I didn't get that. I passed out afterward.
All right, excellent. 28 hours and 52 minutes. And I think when I share my story with anyone, and I have a few people about you, the very first question is, of course, why?
Well,
so that's going to be I mean, that's obviously, I think, the most important question that anybody's going to ask is, well, why did you do such a crazy, what we would call a crazy thing?
I like the idea of accomplishing something that I never thought was possible. Early on, what started the running was high cholesterol and weight loss. So I went to a cardiologist, and he basically told me I need to lose 30 pounds and change my eating habits to bring my cholesterol down.
Did he mention that you didn't have to do that all in one day?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did. He was very encouraging. You know, where some doctors would just try and push their cholesterol-lowering medication, he convinced me that I could do it naturally. And if I couldn't, medication was always an option. So I knew that I had to set a goal. I wouldn't just run to run or exercise to exercise or lose weight to lose weight. I knew I needed something to go for. So I decided that a marathon would make the most sense. I started a training plan, first of all, for a 5K. The first time I went out, I went out for 32 minutes, and I walked for 28 minutes, and I jogged for 4 minutes. That's what started the whole running.
Well, that's really interesting that you mentioned the 28 minutes and 4 minutes, because I've had people who ask me about running or say, hey, I really want to run, and they're overweight or they're out of shape, you know, or whatever, and they just can't. They start running and they get immediately discouraged. You did exactly the right thing. You had to create some wins for yourself, some confidence. So you don't start by going out and killing yourself. You start by doing something naturally. You walk.
Right.
Then you add running into the walking, and then eventually you do more running than you do walking, and then you become a runner.
Right. Well, the first thing, you have to realize it's going to hurt. It's not going to feel good. I was 40 pounds overweight, so I shouldn't expect it to feel good.
All right, so what did you weigh then, and what do you weigh now?
I weighed 205 pounds, and I weigh 165 now.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, 40 pounds.
Yeah, 40. And, well, how tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
So you're an inch taller than me. And you weighed almost 50 pounds more than me.
Right.
At your peak. And I've known you for about 10 years.
Right. Right.
And you and I have talked about exercise and running in the past, and there's always been some reason that I think for both of us at varying times that you don't do that, right? That you decide not to, or you can't fit it into your schedule. Which is what I think is so remarkable about you, besides the fact that you're you and you've done this, and you've done a lot of great stuff, not just 100 miles. But what inspires me is that a person who has all of the excuses that most of us have, all of the, you know, how many children do you have?
3.
3.
7, 6, and 3.
It should be an easy answer, John.
Yeah, 3. Let me think about that. 4? No, 3. 3 kids, 7-year-old, 6-year-old, and 3-year-old.
Right. And for a person that has a 7 and a 9-year-old, I know the demands of that, and you have one more on top of it. So, and then you have a wife that has a business of her own that I'm sure demands a lot of time and your time.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have like a day job, real job.
Right.
And it's not just a 40-hour job. It often is one that commands more of your time than just 40 hours a week.
Correct.
What we were talking about before was all of the typical reasons, I would call them, maybe not even excuses, but they're reasons that we all come up with. And it's not just about exercising. I mean, all of this applies to really anything that you have a dream about or that you really want to do, but you don't do it because you let other stuff get in the way. And we were talking about all the things that you have going on in your life that would normally, be a problem. And you certainly aren't going to go out and run a marathon with all this stuff going on in your life. And the last one that we were talking about was your job, and that you didn't have just a regular job, but you had one that demanded quite a bit of your time. So how did you do that? I mean, how did you juggle all the life stuff with this goal of running a marathon, then eventually, of course, running 100 miles?
Well, first, once I came to the realization that I wanted to run 100 miles, first of all, I knew I needed to find a training plan. And once I found my training plan, it laid out the mileage and the volume that I needed to cover in order to bring my body into a certain, good enough shape to complete 100 miles. So once I had my plan, it laid out exactly what I had to accomplish on a daily basis. So then it was just figuring out, okay, today I've got to run 14 miles. So I also have to be at work by 7 a.m. I've got to be here for the kids at 4. Where do I fit in the time? And how do I do that without this running thing impeding on my family time, which I refuse to allow it to do. So basically, I had to give up sleep. I would wake up my typical routine would be Mondays, an off day. Tuesday, I'm up at 3 a.m. I run between 12 and 14 miles. Then Wednesday, I would run 6 miles. But then the mileage started not being enough for me, so I started going to spin class after running 3 days a week. So, but the mileage thing on Thursday, Thursday I would run about 10 miles, and then Friday's my off day, and then Saturday and Sunday, those are my long runs, which could be anywhere between
long runs.
Yeah, so my long runs are 20 to 30.
The 14 miles, which I would consider a long run, you did not consider that was a short run?
Yes.
I don't even like driving that far.
Yeah. My long run. My long runs were between 20 and 30 miles, and my longest run before the 100 was a 50-miler. It was an actual race I did. But the training plan lays out the mileage. I just had to make sure my body could handle it. So it was I run about 60 to 70 miles a week. But when my program began, I was at 36 to 40 miles a week, and it increases from there. They say that 10% a week is a good increase for the, so that your body can adapt.
So, so you got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So for a lot of people, that's pretty painful in and of itself, let alone going out and running and then going to spinning class.
It was all very good preparation, though. I mean, I would literally go on 4 hours of sleep a lot of days. And the sleep deprivation wasn't a problem for the 28 hours and 52 minutes that I was running. I mean, I saw some runners sleeping on cots, and I just kept going.
Yeah, so that was one question that people have asked me when I told them I was going to be talking with you, and they focused in on the 100 miles, and I don't want to just focus in on that race, because what inspires me about you is not just that, it's why you did it, how you overcame the challenges of doing something like that, and in general, you know, how it impacts your life. So, but a lot of people, of course, want to focus on that one achievement, that 100 miles, because it is a huge achievement. And they asked me, well, I wonder if he slept at all.
No sleep. I drank coffee.
Yeah, I guess I would drink some coffee.
In an IV bag?
Yeah, no IV bag. I just ate and drank and kept going.
People will wonder who else is on this chat here. Another good friend of both John and mine is Michael Giuliano, better known in the Little Rock circles as Hot Dog Mike, is also here, and I'm really glad he's here, because he's another artist that I hope to have on this program in the future, and is equally inspiring in so many ways. So, John,
yes.
Let's talk about that race. Let's get some of the specifics out of the way of that race, and people have a lot of questions about it. So you didn't sleep. What did you eat? How did you prepare yourself nutritionally, and what did you eat before and during the run?
Well, let me back up first. Now, I did, like I said, I did a 50-miler in preparation for the 100-miler. And between the 50 and the 100, I did a 40-miler Mount Mitchell Challenge. So those races were critical in allowing me to run the distances to see what type of nutritional plan would work. I totally had to throw my nutrition plan out of the window for the 100, because the two races I had gastric problems. Just what I was using was not sufficient. I was down to a walk for both of those runs, but it allowed me to find something that would work. So basically, for the 100-miler, my base of what I used was a product called Perpetuum by Hammer Nutrition.
I use that, but I don't use it for 100-milers. But
yeah, well, you can use it for a 100-miler. You just got to consume a lot of it.
Would you think that would taste good on a hot dog? I'm just curious.
No, it would not.
No, okay, never mind.
No, it's a milky substance.
Right,
it doesn't taste very good. The one great thing about that product, though, is that electrolytes and carbohydrates are included in the same mixture. So that takes out some of the equation of consuming enough carbohydrates and taking in enough electrolytes to replace all the sweat loss. So that was my base. Interestingly enough, when I started the race, I thought that I could eat avocado sandwiches and Nutella and almond butter sandwiches. And I honestly was trying to take in real food during that race. But after 30 some odd miles, I threw everything away because I could no longer stomach it. And then I went to a lot of what was offered at the aid stations. They had this great lentil soup that I could take in pretty easily. And then towards the end, I started eating chocolate, and just taking in whatever I could, goo shots and just anything to get calories in. The last lap, my energy dropped. Just if I wasn't taking in at least 100 calories an hour, 100 to 150, I was down to a walk. It was just, it's amazing when you look at what the body needs to keep moving, it comes down to calories and hydration,
Yeah, we're so focused as a society in reducing our calorie count because we're all trying to, watch our weight or eat more healthy or whatever, but that's just on a normal resting calorie burn. Um, when you throw in any kind of rigorous activity, and certainly for endurance, period, if you're not starting out and worrying about how many calories you take in every hour, you'll what they call bonk or hit the wall or whatever. It happens so quickly. So I know what you're talking about. That's a pretty important part of this whole thing. You mentioned laps. Tell me about the course.
The course was it's the Umstead 100 and mile endurance run. It's a 12.5 mile loop. So there's 8 loops, and that's what makes up the 100 miles. It's a course. It's a home course. I train on it often. It's right here in Cary, North Carolina, and it's rolling hills. So I was used to it. It's a bridle trail, so it's real open, flat, and rolling.
So
great surface.
It's a real trail, not pavement.
Right.
So you had not a regular running shoe on. You had a trail shoe.
Yeah, I run in Brooks. The shoe's called True Grit, and for me, I started out running in the.
I'm sure your check from Brooks is on its way.
Oh no! I'm not endorsed by anyone.
Not yet.
Not yet. I started out running with the Vibram 5 Fingers, and that's what I did the 50-miler in.
How'd that go?
Well, I didn't really know what I got myself into, which was a great learning experience. It was a technical 5 out of 5 for technical difficulty. It was a single track trail, so it was very challenging. Probably one of the harder things that I've ever done, and it was in Pine Mountain, Georgia, south of Atlanta. I was bee stung. I jumped over a 5-foot rattlesnake. I was running on low hydration, it was a struggle to make it through that. But I realized that the 5 Fingers weren't the shoe that I wanted to run in for the 100-miler. I needed a little bit more support. So it was good.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How long is it in between these challenges? I mean, it sounds like, you got done with one and you were on to the next one so quickly. What's the time frame on those?
Well, after the 50 was in the training plan, so I knew that on that day, which was October 13th, I needed to go 50 miles. That was my first race that I'd ever done, and it was October 13th. So the Mount Mitchell Challenge was in February, which was good because I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to do the Mount Mitchell Challenge because I was still recovering from the 50. Shortly after the 50, I hyperextended my right knee in spin class, funny enough. So that kind of put me behind in some of my training. The Mount Mitchell Challenge, I didn't necessarily have to do a 40-mile run that day, but I did need to do probably a 30-mile run. So I figured, let me just make this my real long run. It was from Black Mountain to Mount Mitchell and then back to get ready for the 100. So I would say in between, since the 100, which was 3 weeks ago, I've only ran maybe 20 miles a week. So I've really backed off my mileage and really tried to recover.
Only 20 miles a week.
I know
I'll get my calculator out and figure this out.
Well, let me tell you this. Before I started running, I remember seeing my neighbor running down the road or the sidewalk near our house. And I could not believe that he had ran that far. I was blown away. I said, that's my neighbor? He ran 3 miles? It was unbelievable to me.
I still say that.
And I know, 3 miles, because 3 miles, at the time, I had not jogged, I had not run. I mean, I was a walker, And I just remember being blown away at that distance. And you know, when I have a chance to talk to people that want to run or think that they can't do it, I tell them the first time I went out, I was out for 32 minutes and I only jogged for 4 minutes. And that was 2 years ago.
Right.
So in 2 years, I went from a 4 minute jog, 4 minutes, to 100 miles. And it's 2 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, people that run 100 these other, I've studied and read. I know you have, John. We've read books about other people, ultra marathoners and people who do all this stuff. But they do it. They've done it for years. They use years of working up to that. I'm a reasonably good example of that. I mean, I hope to either do a 100-mile run, which you're encouraging me to do, but I also am thinking about maybe at some point before my life ends, Ironman. But I've been running, for a good 12 years. More seriously, I'd say in the last 3 years than ever before. But certainly, I didn't start like you did only 2 years ago. That's incredible. That in and of itself is remarkable.
Well, I'll say that, I said that my first goal was a marathon, and I never reached that goal. And I never reached the goal because I didn't have a plan.
4 in one day.
I know. I never did a marathon. And and the reason why I never did the marathon is I hurt myself. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know anything about.
You told me you were signed up for one.
I was signed up for the Disney Marathon, and let me backtrack. Well, what happened? I never had a training plan because I started on the 5K training plan and I ditched it. I threw it out. When I got to where I could run a mile, I said to myself, let me see if I can run 2 miles. And then I did it. And then I came home and said to my wife, I'm going to see if I can run 4 miles. And I went and did that. And there I kept doubling. And before I knew it, I came home one night and said, honey, I ran 20 miles tonight. And she was telling her clients about my running, and at the time I was running probably 30 miles a week, and they couldn't believe that I was running 30 miles a week. Well, shortly after that, I hurt myself. I developed ITBS, which is a tightening of the IT band. Yeah, exactly. Now I stretch it out. Now I know what to do, but because of that, I injured myself so close to the marathon, I never even made it to the marathon. So that put me out of commission, and then I realized if I want to do this, I need some type of training plan to follow. So I started educating myself about it. And when I realized I wanted to do the 100, I contacted the race director, this was last year, and said, I want to run the 100 next year. And what do I need to do? And they said, first of all, how long have you been running? What have you done? Yeah, well, so I went and volunteered for cleanup crew last year. So I cleaned toilets, I swept out cabins. I volunteered my time just so I could be guaranteed entrance into this year's race. So that gave me a full year to train for it. Now the assistant race director, when I told her what I wanted to do and I told her how long I've been running, she basically said, there's no way. There's no way that you can do this. And
fighting words.
I said,
those are just the words you needed to hear.
Those are John's words right there.
The funny thing is she said, I can see it in your eyes. I said, yeah, this is something I want to do. I'm here. I'm cleaning toilets so I can have this chance, this opportunity. And she gave me great advice. She said, one, if you want to do this, you need to at least do a 50 before so that you know what to expect your body to go through. And that was great advice. And I said, well, how do I learn more about ultra running? And she said, you either join a group and hang out with other ultra runners and ask a lot of questions, or you read a lot of books. So I didn't know anyone that ran ultra marathons, but I started getting my hands on some books, and then started following people on Twitter and reading about their blogs and race reports, and trying to get as much information as I could on nutrition and training, and adapting my training plan and adding speed work in it, and just changing things up and seeing if my body could handle it. And that's basically how I did it. I said, I'm doing it. I'm doing this 100 miles on this date. Now I have a year to prepare for it. And I just tried to take all the information I could and apply it.
Well,
and that's,
you've said some key things, I think, that are very important as lessons for people that are trying to achieve something. It doesn't has nothing to do with fitness or with running 100 miles. But anyone that has the desire, the want, when they say, I really want to do something, there's a huge difference between saying, I want to do something and kind of dreaming about it, and then doing everything you can to actually achieve it. And what I mean by that is, well, I'll give you I give a talk called What's the Point? And that's what was really what inspired this first session, and hopefully others that I'll do with artists like you. And in that talk, I actually throw a slide up and I say, okay, let's talk about the difference between wanting to do something and actually doing it, and setting yourself up to achieve it. Because people will come to me after they get out of college, and they'll come to the hotel where I work, and they'll want a job, and they'll say, well, I want to be, and I jokingly use event planner because that's the one that we hear the most from people, and they say they want to be an event planner. And I said, well, why do you want to be an event planner? And they say, well, because it just seems like a lot of fun, and I think I'd be really good at it. Why do you think you'd be really good at it? Well, because I was the social chair for my sorority, and I planned these birthday things and these social functions, and everybody had a great time. And I'm like, that's it? That's what you have to show me that you really want to be an event planner? Have you immersed yourself with event planners and chefs? Have you spent all your free time trying to learn about what it is event planners do? Have you gone and taken up side jobs, or just taken weekends and gone and offered to volunteer and help? So these things that you were talking about, cleaning the toilets the year before, connecting with all these people who've done this sort of thing, that great advice you had received from this person, that's exactly what is necessary, and that's why you were able to do what you did.
Right.
You can't. I wanted to be an astronaut. Clearly, I'm not ever going to.
Well,
be
you
an
need a
astronaut.
plan for that, Michael.
Because I didn't do the things I didn't do the things necessary to do that. But now, I mean, having learned some lessons and so I can now go, well, I know now what it takes, and I can, if I want to do an Ironman, well, I know now what I have to do. I have to hang out with people like you. I have to be inspired by other people, and I have to immerse myself and train to that level. But I don't think people understand what the difference is between wanting to do something and doing it, and particularly when it's something lofty. I mean, a goal, whether it be a personal goal or a career goal.
Right. Well,
go ahead.
On that run, I came across two ultra runners that were from California. The one gentleman was 65, and he had ran 20 100-mile races. And the other lady, who was his friend, had traveled, they were doing these things together. She had done 10 of them. And when I was telling them that I get up at 3 in the morning, they looked at me like I was crazy. And I told them, I said, you know, I used to have excuses of why I wouldn't do things. And now I have no excuses. Whether I go on 1 hour of sleep or no sleep at all, I will go, and I will make myself go, and I will drink coffee throughout the day to stay awake to do my job. And it's really a decision to either have excuses in your life or not. Because if it means enough to you, you'll go without sleep to make it happen.
Well, and that's, of course, yeah, that's the critical juncture. If it means enough to you, you know,
right.
Does it matter enough? Is it meaningful enough? And I think, if I can recall from our some previous conversations during our friendship, certainly for me, the reason I started on this jag of fitness, I think similar to yours, was I had children. I had family history of high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, all these things. And I said, I'm going to prolong my life. And the only way I know how to do that is to go out and exercise a lot. And at first it was something that I didn't look forward to doing. To me, it was more like getting a job at, I can only imagine this kind of prison, but getting a job at the DMV, you know, and that I would have to go out and do this just as a task so that I could, you know, enjoy other parts of my life. Then, of course, not realizing that it became a big joy in and of itself, and it's become a big part of my purpose, is that.
Right.
But this thing about meaning and it matters enough, how do you figure that out? How did you figure that out, that it meant enough to you to do this, to set aside the excuses and to work past them?
It goes a little deeper than what we've already talked about. My dad, he was a unrelenting alcoholic. He left when I was 12 years old, and to me, I felt like he had given up on his family. He had given up on me. And I have children, and I have a son and 2 daughters, and I didn't want to give up on them. And it's more of a struggle. And sometimes when I'm running, I'm struggling to not quit, because to me, quitting is giving up on my family, and I will not do that. I will not put them through the same thing that I grew up with. And I know that my kids couldn't understand exactly what happened with the 100 miles, but hopefully one day when they can, they'll say my dad did something great. He never gave up. He kept going. When others laid down, he never stopped. And hopefully they know that I did that for them as well as myself and my family.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a fabulous way of illustrating it. I mean, the true artist, and I'm not talking about a contemporary, traditional, you know, musician type of artist. I'm talking about anyone that does anything that matters, that's special enough to get noticed and remarked upon, which is why I think basically all people have the potential to be artists. Everyone has to be an expert at something, and you're an artist for, you know, for understanding the difference between giving up and letting reasons or excuses get in the way of stopping your dream and fulfillment of your purpose. And that's the lesson for others. It's not physical pain or going and running 100 miles or even 50 miles or a marathon. It's how you basically beat the part of your brain that jumps out all the time, constantly, and says, no, don't do that. It's not safe to do that. You should be focusing on this. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's that, you know, it's how do you get past that? And that's what's inspirational to me.
I've noticed that a lot of people are real concerned with my knees later in life. when I try and encourage some people to get active and to start moving and walking, they tell me, well, I hope your knees don't go out in 10 years.
What a crock.
I know. I'm trying to encourage you. Your knees are going to go out before mine because of some of the weight you're carrying, you know.
Yeah.
And I used to carry it.
Yeah.
I used to carry the 40 extra pounds, so I know what my knees felt like then compared to now.
Right. Yeah, you can now put on a 40-pound pack and go, holy crap.
How is that possible? How did I move?
Or when you go to check your luggage at the airport and they put it on the scale and it's teetering near that magical 50-pound mark, you know, where you got to pay extra.
Right.
You remember how hard it is to lift that damn thing off there? Well,
yeah.
That's how a lot of people, you know, they're carrying that kind of weight around, and imagine how much better, you know, your whole body works. That's right. Well, not to belabor the whole knee thing, but proper running, proper walking and running and posture, all that will virtually eliminate knee problems.
Right.
I was going to ask about that, actually.
Pardon?
I was actually going to ask about that. You know, where do you know, I had started running with Michael a couple of years ago, and you know, my posture and my feet and all that stuff starts to get in the way where again you come up with excuses why to stop. How do you go about figuring out whether or not you're doing it right? You know, so that you can not hurt yourself.
Is that Michael or myself?
Whoever. John, you're probably a good you're probably a good voice at that right now. You know, oh, you need these shoes or those shoes or whatever.
Well, I will say I'm fortunate enough that when I started jogging and running and walking first, I'm fortunate that I wasn't one of these runners that was a heel striker. So I didn't. Michael was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have the shoes to prove it. I keep all my old running shoes, so I can get running shoes out from 4 years ago. I'll show you how I wore out my heels. You know, way before the front was ready to be worn out. Anyway, continue. Yes, you were not.
Yeah,
you were fortunate not to be one of them.
I was not a heel striker naturally. I naturally want to get up on the balls of my feet and run with I don't even know what type of stride it is. Was it 4 foot or whatever? But I wasn't a heel striker. And they say that leads to a host of problems for people, all the way up to your back by running like that. So the way I run, I keep my weight over my knees, over my feet, and I do small steps. And I'll increase my cadence at my hips and just move almost like I'm spinning on a cycle. If I want to go faster, that's how I increase speed. And I don't overstride. Overstriding, especially if you're carrying around weight. If you're really trying to take off running with a lot of weight on you, you're asking to become injured. As the weight came off, my stride improved dramatically, even after that. So I think the key, Michael, is starting out slow, trying to get some of the weight off. Start out walking, just walking regularly. Everything's regularly. Trying to build some type of routine. Now, it's been 2 years for me, and this is a lifestyle now. I mean, it's just a part of who I am now at this point. So as far as, I don't know if I answered that, but that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I think you did. I think people often, think they have to get the right kind of shoe or the, maybe even the right clothes or whatever. And I think the things that you've said are far more important. Finding the right posture, the right stride, and the right striking. Most people, Michael, you might be in this category. most of us were heel strikers, and I was a big heel striker. And my wife saw it right away, and she said, "That's a big problem. You need to fix that." And so I had to concentrate on it. I mean, work at it, shorten my stride, do all the things that John said, so that I was hitting on the balls of my feet. If your body is designed to run without shoes, theoretically.
Well, yeah, they didn't have shoes thousands of years ago, right?
Exactly. So when we were running around hunting and gathering, or maybe even, throwing, killing animals, or tracking them, or doing whatever we did back then, we didn't have shoes. And we were designed, and if you ever want to see this in action, Michael, watch a child, just find a child that doesn't have shoes on, and watch them run. And they naturally have not yet learned through the shoe. This is where it gets a little, some people there are different schools of thought on what causes all this, but one school of thought is that the shoes that we've designed up until about 5 years ago, with all the big shocking, Nike Airs and all the soles, all the big stuff. That
you won't get a check from them, by the way.
Pardon?
So you're not going to get a check from them now,
by
the way.
So, they basically, it's made us so comfortable that it's turned us all into lazy runners. So we've picked up habits, much like anything else you think about when you're comfortable.
Right.
You can pick up bad habits by being comfortable. And certainly running, you can do that. And over time, what's happened is that we've created these big soles and comfortable shoes, and we've turned into bad runners. So that's why you see this new movement by all these shoe companies to create the minimalistic, closer to barefoot running. Nike's got the Free. Newton running is a big one. My wife is like an avid Newton fan. She got me hooked on Newton shoes. I do not get a check from Newton. I don't have any stock in Newton, but they're great shoes. And they all these are designed to get you, like John said, forward, on the balls of your feet, off of your heels, and to shorten your stride so that you don't have knee and back problems.
And so, more neutral type shoes. They don't overcorrect or undercorrect.
So I guess the moral sort of in that is, your body is going to almost do what it should do if you allow it to and you listen to it.
Yeah, before I started running, Michael, one of the first things I did, I went to an orthopedic doctor's office and had my feet x-rayed because I was flat-footed, and I thought I was going to need orthotics. My feet hurt, I would get some pains in them sometimes from the shoes I was wearing. And he looked at my feet and he said, "Well, they don't look that bad. You could start this, and then if you need orthotics, you could come back." And I'd read the book Born to Run, like a lot of people have.
That's
and
the
in
book
the book,
I sent you.
Yeah, Born to Run. That's kind of what started.
Your fault.
That's right.
That's okay. If I'm going to be at fault for something, I damn sure want to be at fault for this, and not a lot of other things I've done.
That's right. Well, in the book, I had to ask myself. It made me ask myself, "Am I born to run?" And I look back at my childhood, and I used to run all the time. I grew up in athletics, and I played sports: baseball, soccer, football. I even would run track. I would go and race. I didn't practice, but I would go race for track meets because it was during the same season as baseball. But anyway, so I said, yeah, I think I was born to run. It helped me look at myself and say, at one point in my life, I could run. So if I could run then, I could run again. And so anyway, my feet, they were flat. I had Fred Flintstone feet. And after reading the book, I decided, let me try out these Vibrams. And when I put them on my feet, I got on a treadmill at the shoe store. They felt so great just to jog a little bit on a treadmill, but they warned me, be careful, you could get hurt wearing these because your Achilles tendon has been shortened because of the shoes that I wear.
Right.
My calves aren't used to having my heel on the ground. So all these things that they were warning me, and I said, well, I know this is going to hurt anyway, so let me try this out. You know, after reading the book, I was inspired. Let me try out these Vibrams, and I fell in love with just running in them and how it felt. Yeah, my Achilles tendon did have to stretch out. I did have the pains in my calves. I mean, if I put them on and go run today, my calves will get a workout.
Yeah.
But what happened, my feet strengthened themselves. My feet are so strong now, and it's because of the Vibrams. Let's say I didn't run in Vibrams. It's because of my feet. I allowed the muscles in my feet to develop again. And as the weight came off, my feet are just so strong. It's unbelievable. And now I still incorporate the Vibrams in my training. I can tell when my feet are feeling a little weak, and I will go running in the Vibrams, and it's like they get a workout. So I have a combination of different shoes that I'll wear for the different workouts. But,
yeah, my family, we have similar stories. So Nancy has had some issues with her feet. In the past, she developed neuromas, which is a nerve problem in her foot that she had to have surgery on 2 times. She was prescribed orthotics, not only just for walking, let alone for running. And then it wasn't until when we moved to Little Rock, and I got more serious about running, and then she was running with me. She decided she was going to run a marathon with me, and she started the long training, and she realized that we were both running incorrectly. I had already started making some progress. She had not. She switched over to the Newton running shoe. And she went and saw some people locally about what shoes to buy and all that sort of thing. And she told them about her problems and her orthotics. And they said, orthotics? Why do you have orthotics? Well, that's what they told me I needed. They go, you just need to change the way you run. And then it'll all take care of itself. And it's true. She doesn't wear orthotics at all anymore in any shoe. And she uses these Newton running shoes, and once she got used to them, she can run a marathon in Newton. I cannot. It would be painful for me to do that. And when I got my first set of Newtons, much like you in the Vibrams, and I have similar traits as you. I tend not to listen to all the advice that I'm given, and particularly about you're gonna, you can't, you're gonna don't go out and run your normal run in these shoes. You will create pain and problems for yourself. You need to start by running like a half mile. And I went, half mile? I can't remember the last time I only went out and ran a half mile. Who does that? So I went out and ran 3 miles in my Newtons. And the next day, I thought my calves and my feet were going to fall off. I mean, I thought I had injured myself to the point I needed to see a doctor. And luckily I did not. But whoever, if somebody gives you the advice with new types of shoes to not go on run in them as much as you normally do, heed that advice. It's very good advice.
Yeah, that's.
You have to retrain your muscles, retrain everything to work in these, because you're changing the whole style of how you do something.
And going out slow, taking it slow and easy, to begin with. I agree with that.
Right.
After I finished the 50, I said I shouldn't have ran this 50 in these Vibrams because my feet were numb for 2 weeks.
Ooh.
Now I didn't have any blisters. I didn't have blisters, but they were numb because of the trauma of running through a rock quarry, which is what it basically was.
Oh my God. Well,
So, but you learn. I would have never known that had I not
Right.
done the run.
Right.
And you don't know what your body. I told my wife, I said the only way to figure out what type of nutritional plan works is to run really long for a long time and consume something. And your
Yeah.
body will tell you if it's gonna if it's gonna work or it's not.
yeah, they in the marathon training, and I know to you a marathon isn't much of a big deal, and I guess these days marathoning isn't that, I mean, marathons are now kind of passé. Now you got to be an ultra marathoner. You got to run 30, 50, 100 miles to be able to wear a cool T-shirt. I mean, sorry, Michael. Michael, you just have to forget about the marathon dream and go straight for the 50. Forget the marathon.
Well, you go straight for what you want.
Use the John Self method. Sign up for a marathon. Just skip it and just keep on going. And then during your training, you'll run a marathon. And you'll go, "Hey, honey, I ran a marathon."
Well, that's what happened.
You know those stickers on the back? You know those stickers on the back of your car?
Yes.
The numbers? Here's mine. But I'm inspired. I will tell you that.
Well, there's nothing. I mean, a marathon is still a huge accomplishment, and for a lot of people, that is the ultimate. Finishing a marathon is the ultimate goal of something that they never thought was possible. Before I started running, I told you my neighbor was only 3 miles from our house, and that was unbelievable to me. 3 miles. Something just grabbed hold of me with the longer ultra running distances. That's all. I mean,
well, here's a funny thing about marathons. So you run, I've run marathons, and you feel like you're in this club of people who run marathons, and then you talk with people about running marathons, and then you realize that your big achievement of running a marathon in under 5 hours is like, these people run it in 3 hours. And then you say, and here's the interesting thing. You say, wow, 3 hours. You ran in 3 hours, man. That is like, can I kiss your feet? That's a big deal. You're really fast and you're really strong. And they go, well, how long did it take you? Well, it was just under 5 hours or something. And they go, whoa, really? They go, I don't know. I don't know if my body could be out there. I don't know if I could be out there for 5 hours. What they're saying is that, and early on in my marathon training, somebody told me, a runner, an avid runner said, you need to train your body to be on your feet for a long period of time. You do not need to worry about conditioning yourself to run it fast. Because you're going to be out on your feet running, maybe a little walking, but certainly running for a long time for what your body is normally used to. That's what you've got to deal with. And that's why you go through all these training sessions and you keep getting yourself out there longer and longer and longer. So you're out there for 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever it takes. These other people, the world-class runners, the elites, run it in under, they run it in 2 hours and 15 minutes. They would fall over if they had to run for 5 hours. They couldn't do it. I mean, they could probably, but they wouldn't do it like they do their 2 hours, because they're used to being on their feet for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, well, the 100, I was out there 28 hours, 52 minutes, and the guy that won it was out there for 15 hours. In 15 hours, he was done.
Wow.
And I was still chugging along.
I don't think I could be up for that long, let alone running. I mean, that's what's remarkable to me. When you said 28 hours, I had sent you a couple messages when you were out there or whatever, and you said 28 hours, and I'm thinking, gosh, the other day I was up for 20 hours, and I thought I was going to pass out walking. So I don't know. What can you just tell us? What do you do you feel anything? Does your body just not care what time it is? How does that happen?
Honestly, I just kept moving. I kept moving forward. I kept, I didn't spend a lot of time at aid stations. I got what I needed, and then I kept going, and I just.
Well,
It is a straight
how long
run,
did you
right?
sleep? How long did you sleep before you? All right. What kind of resting did you do before you went out for the race? I mean,
4
did you
hours.
like lay around for 2 days and
4
and sleep
hours.
a lot?
4 hours. 4 hours before I started.
Wow.
What?
I had 4 hours of sleep, and then I woke up and went to the race and started.
Why
That is
did you
amazing.
only have 4 hours? Was that because you were nervous?
No, preparation. I was packing all my food and all my clothes. I had 2 drop bags that I had to pack with nutrition and change of clothes, Body Glide,
Yeah.
Vaseline, just everything that I thought I would need, Band-Aids.
So
Just
did you have
anything.
family or support people there with you? Did you have support people that were giving you stuff or would get stuff for you? Or how did you say you had drop bags?
No, I didn't have any support. I had 2 drop bags. So I packed the 2 bags. There was one at the start of the race and one halfway through, and it had the supplies that I would go to for the race. With those drop bags, obviously I started at 6 in the morning. During the day it got a little warmer, so I would take off some clothes and some of the stuff I was wearing, like my hydration pack, and I stuffed it in the drop bag, and I went to 2 handhelds as I was going. So the drop bags were great to get things out of and also put things into. But no, there was no support staff support. It was just me and my drop bags.
Nice.
I will say that a lot of the runners that did have pacers, and Michael, you might not know this, but for these races, a lot of times you can have a pacer, which is somebody that will run along with you and help you keep pace, of when you want to finish the race. And some races allow muling, which means that they will allow the pacer to carry your supplies. And I think this one allowed muling, but a lot of the runners picked up pacers at 6 o'clock p.m. Now, I didn't have a pacer at the race, but I asked for a pacer at 2:30 in the morning to help me finish the last 2 laps. And that was, for 100 miles, I think having somebody there just to
Keep you going at the end.
keep you going. I mean, the 7th lap was the most difficult lap for me. It was in the middle of the night. I was cold. I was tired. I started hallucinating. I started seeing children's toys, and maybe because I have 3 kids, I don't know why. But then I started seeing mailboxes, and trees started moving, not
Wow.
like wind, like back and forth like this. My body started just going through just a lot of things I never experienced before. And Allison was my pacer on that 7th lap, and that was by far my most difficult lap of the day. I mean, the 7th lap, you're at 80 miles, 80 plus miles. And then a weird thing happened when I made it back to the start of the race. Before I started my final lap, I honestly didn't know if I'd make the cutoff. The cutoff was 30 hours, and I went into my hydration pack. I was really struggling at that point, not sure. I wasn't sure how it'd turn out, but I reached into my pack, and this little piece of paper fell out and landed on the floor. And I picked up the piece of paper, and it was a heart that my son John had made for me. He cut it out with scissors, and it was in the shape of this heart, and I carried it with me the whole race. And when I needed it the most, it fell out on the ground. And when I picked it up, I realized why I was there, what I needed to do, and it was exactly what I needed to push through on that last lap. I got one cup of coffee. I grabbed another pacer, and I just took off. And I started running again. And I was battling a hip issue. My left hip had given out. So essentially, I was hopping and skipping as I was going on the last lap, and I wouldn't stop. I mean, I was re-energized, and I felt my body just come to life again. It was the most surreal experience I've ever experienced. And that's one of those things that you just don't know what your body and mind will do until you're faced with a deadline and the last 12 and a half miles of a 100-miler. I got to see what I was really made of, and I pushed through. And when I came to the finish, my mom, her husband, my wife, my kids were there waiting for me, and it was just one of the greatest moments of my life. And had I not started this journey and not said I wanted to accomplish something that was unachievable in my mind, I would have never had that moment in my life, and I would have never had it. So yeah, scrubbing toilets a year before, it was all worth it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a few things to me when we had a conversation about this before today, and you mentioned one of the most gratifying moments was actually beyond what you just described. You'd watched two other people come in. Well, one other person finished the race just before the deadline, and what was remarkable about that person?
Well, there were two people at the very finish. She was a 71-year-old woman, and she finished with 8 minutes left. And there to meet her at the finish was her 71-year-old husband, who had finished earlier. So this couple, I mean, I'd passed them, I'd seen them on the run, and at one point they exchanged hugs and kisses, and he told her, "Wait up for me, honey," and she said, "Yeah, right," and she took off. And it was so, I mean, it was such an experience. I mean, amazing experience for this couple, a 71-year-old couple, to finish a 100-mile run is just, it was awesome.
I feel like I need to get out of this chair, so I'm going to go soon. Hey.
Yeah, I'm going to go out and run now.
I got to go.
A couple of other things that you said to me, John, that stuck with me. Another one is that you said that something about when you know you've done something when you are sore or something along those lines. Can you tell me what you remind me?
Yeah, well, I like to think that, you know, no matter what the day holds for me, in my training, I'd go out running, and I remember thinking, no matter what else happens today, I ran 15 miles. I did this today. Not what do I want to do tomorrow, not what did I do before. Today, I ran 15 miles. And one day, I'd missed my long run because of a show, and I do events, so I had to miss a 30-mile run. And during the week, I decided I'm going to run at least 26.2 miles. And I woke up at 1 a.m. and I started running. And I ran, I forget how long it was. It was 4+ hours. And I remember thinking, if nothing else, today I ran a marathon. And I went to work after that and worked 10 hours and then came home. And had to do bath night and had to do homework with my kids. I mean, my recovery is taking care of 3 kids in the evening. So very rarely do I get the chance to sit on the couch and put my feet up. But
you run a marathon before you go to work.
I ran a marathon before I went to work, and it was awesome. The whole day I was saying, I ran a marathon today.
People are like, "Oh, I only got 3 hours sleep," and you're like, "Yeah, I ran a marathon this morning."
I only got 2 hours sleep that day. 2 hours.
Up
and
until
ran that
then,
marathon.
John, up until this point in this program, I think we had a chance to get people through something. Now I think they're just thinking you're just a complete maniac.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I mean, what Michael was saying, I say to myself, I enjoy the soreness and the pain because it means I did something. I don't mind my feet aching. I mean, yesterday I ran 10 miles in Vibrams. My feet hurt every step of the way the last 2 miles. But that's all temporary. It's going to go away as soon as I stop. But at least I know, I did something that day. Something
Well,
I'm proud of.
That's really cool. I have one. I know. You've been kind enough to give us an hour and a half or 2 hours of your time, and I want to ask one more question that I basically will ask every one of the guests that I ever do this show with. And it may only be one, or maybe Michael. My plan is to have Michael on as the next guest, and maybe John, you'll join us, and you'll get to reverse, and you'll get to ask some questions.
Yes. Because
Michael has beaten some odds himself, and has stuck his neck out where others would not normally go. I mean, it's too risky to do what Michael did, and I think that is a great story as well, and we're going to get to that, of course, the next time. But I have one more question for you, and now that and if you hear chaos in the background, it's because my wife came home and the dog will bark. But the last question I have for you is, okay, John, you've run 100 miles. You ran a marathon just, before going to work one day. You've run 50 miles in Vibrams and your feet hurt for 2 weeks. So physically, you've obviously demonstrated you can see through a dip. You can get past the wall. You can get through things. What's next? I mean, what's the point? What do you do now?
Well, it's funny you asked
to Little Rock and visit.
It's taken me 3 weeks to ponder that question. What do I do next? I mean, I dreamed of the 100 miles for so long, and I fought to reach that goal and to make that dream come true. What do I do next? And up until a couple of days ago, I didn't know, but I would like to run across North Carolina. So I think that's going to be my next goal. I think I could do it in 2 weeks if I run about 40 miles a day, 40 to 50 a day for 2 weeks. I haven't set a time frame for that. I don't know if the training or the preparation is going to be a year or 2 years, but I would like to run across my home state of North Carolina. And beyond that, if I reach that goal, I think I'd like to run across the United States at some point. I said a long time ago, the 100 miles, what do you do when you achieve something that you never thought was possible? What do you do? And for me, it's trying to find what my limit is, and I haven't found it yet. So I know I can run across North Carolina. I just have to train for it. And I think
I have no doubt you can run anywhere you want to. I have no doubt. In fact, I don't have any doubt you can do anything. And when I first asked you this question, I think it was maybe the day or two after you finished the race. You remember what your answer was?
Rest.
No. After that.
Oh, I don't remember.
Well, it made a big impression on me because it totally threw me for a loop, but it was the answer and the way you said it. I asked you, well, what do you do next? And you said, well, now that I've run 100 miles, I realize that there's really nothing I can't do. And I had always wanted to learn to play the piano. And I never did.
Right.
And now that I've run 100 miles and I've figured out that there's nothing I can't do, well, I think I'm going to learn how to play the piano because I just need to go out and do that.
Well, you're right. That is another goal. I do want to learn how to play the piano. And that was something that I look back on my childhood and I say, geez, I wish I would have had piano lessons. And that's an excuse. It's all an excuse.
Yeah.
If I want to learn piano, I should do it right now.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why I can't. If I
There's
can get
not.
up at 1 o'clock in the morning and run, I can get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and learn how to play the piano.
Exactly. And it's all about what we choose to do, what we choose to let stand in our way. And everybody struggles with this in every aspects of all aspects of our lives, whether it's physical stuff or mental stuff or job stuff or family stuff or whatever. And we choose. There's no one making any choices for us. We are lucky to live in a place where we can choose to do pretty much what we want to do when we want to do it. And I think that's just it was really an answer I didn't expect at all about the piano, but it was perfect because that totally illustrates exactly what we're talking about. It's not about running 100 miles. It's about choosing and realizing that there's nothing that I can't do. People, now that I'm getting older and I'm nearing 50, and which I at one time thought was really old already, and now age to me, in fact, if I didn't celebrate another birthday, it just wouldn't matter to me. Because, if I want to go win a bike race in 2 years against somebody that's 20 years junior to me, I think I can do it.
Right.
Why can't I do it? Only thing that separates me is the training.
That's right.
And I may have to train a little harder and endure a little bit more pain than somebody 20 years my junior, but I could if I wanted to.
Right. Well, and you probably could endure more pain because the older we get, the more pain we've had in our lives.
Yeah. Well, I think you're remarkable in so many ways, and I'm glad you ran the 100 miles because it gave us this chance to really, reunite about a lot of things, and certainly it gave me a chance to be inspired again about some things in my life. So I really appreciate you and everything you've done.
Well, I appreciate it, Michael, and thanks for sending me the book that started it all.
Well, you're welcome. All right. Well, thanks for your time this afternoon, guys, both of you. And Michael will get you on, soon, and we'll reverse this. And I have a feeling that over time we'll get more and more people watching this live, and then and hopefully this broadcasting actually worked and all this was recorded. Because if it wasn't, it's going to be disappointing. But it's still very fruitful for me. I've had a great time.
Thanks, Michael. It's good seeing everybody.
All right, we'll see you.